It's like giving yourself a raise and you didn't even increase your income.
Maybe this is exactly the point that's going to catapult you to getting to financial freedom, and we need to be ready.
This is probably the biggest ticket item on your bank statement. Margin stewarded well over time creates financial freedom. There is no wealth creation if you do not have financial margin in your life. And it's all well and good if you know that financial margin is important, but how do we actually create it? What tactical and practical ways are there for us to create margin in our life? What do we need to change about our current lifestyle or add or take away from our lifestyle to be able to create this margin that brings this wealth that helps us fulfill the vision we have for our lives? Now, that is what we're going to attack today. Welcome to Understanding Money. My name is Martin, and this is my co-host Ruan, who you'll see in a bit. And we are going to chat about, as we spoke about last episode, why is financial margin important? Why is it important to live below your means, to spend less than you earn? Why? This simple concept, why is it so important? Whereas today, we're going to make it really practical. We're going to make it really tactical and dive into about 10 methods, 10 ways, things that you can look at in your current life, try in your current lifestyle to create this margin in your life, to take certain things away, add certain things in that will create this space, this breathing room in your budget to be able to exercise discipline over time, small baby steps being taken that will lead to this financial freedom, which is a life of options, a life of choices, to be able to move in certain directions with your money and then ultimately be able to build wealth. Obviously, not just for yourself, but for generations to come. This is ultimately about changing your family tree, but it starts now, and it starts with small incremental habits being built. So it's less about the amounts that are being saved or gained. It's really more about the habit of creating that margin and exercising discipline. So who is this episode for? Who are we actually talking to? Some of you may be listening and you might have a lot of margin in your life and you might be exercising these disciplines or habits and you've maybe been doing it, and that's amazing. But this episode is for specific people. It's for people who don't have any margin in their life, who are living month to month, don't have any breathing room, and are so scared, maybe not even sleeping at night, because if something goes wrong, what are they going to do? Or it's for people who are deeply in debt or just in debt and really in trouble. They know they have debit orders going off every month, not really sure if they're going to make it, will they have enough for food at the end of the month. And you need to attack this problem right now and get out of debt. Or it's for people who don't have emergency fund savings, who don't have rainy day savings for if something happens, what are they going to do about it? Don't want to go into debt, but want to have some breathing room. And yes, this margin ultimately will later on create space for investing and for being generous with the wealth that you build. But ultimately, these practical methods, even though some of them might sound pretty radical, it's going to be what's required to be able to create that space, especially for those who feel the pressure, who feel the stress, and who feel the sweat dripping down because they're struggling to look at their finances peacefully. So that's who this episode is for. And like I said, some of this might sound hectic or radical. Some of it might sound even really simple. But like Dave Ramsey said, and like we've mentioned before, money is 80% behavior and 20% head knowledge. So you might know what to do, but are you actually putting it to practice? So Ruan, chat us a bit about how do we actually create this margin? Just lead us into the key principles.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty. I think this is so exciting because now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of like, how do we add that value? We've given a lot of like backdrop and sort of set the scene, but now we're getting to the practical things of like, what can you do to move yourself forward? And I think hectic is the correct word because what we want at the end of the day is progress. And we all know that like, unless you change something, nothing's going to change. So what are we changing? Martin, you spoke about margin being obviously income minus expenses, and that leaves us what we have left. So how do we make that more? And if we look at that equation, logic dictates that the first thing we could do is increase income. But increasing income starts with a budget. Now you might be thinking, how in the world, how do these oaks love a budget so much that they're telling me a budget will increase your income? It's not what I'm saying. The budget will increase your margin, because you need to know, what am I spending? You need to track your spend, because if you track it, you can keep it under control. Because if you increase your income and your expenses increase as well, you're not going to increase your margin. We want to increase your income to increase your margin, but you're only going to have more at the end of the month if your expenses stays the same. And if we don't do that, it's just like running blind towards a goal you'll never reach. So get the budget, track the actuals, track what you spend, get the spending under control, have it stable, have it the same month on month, so that when we execute these plans and we increase income, you actually will have more margin at the end of the month. So how do we do this? Well, hopefully you're lucky enough to be in a line of work that has commission, that has a bonus structure. So first thing we would do is to get a grasp of what is my expectation, and maybe there's a plan that you can draft to overperform, and then use those commissions, use those bonus structures to attack your debt, to get that extra margin, to have the extra money that you can put in a rainy day, so that when life happens, you have that. And unfortunately, not everyone has a commission structure per se, but something that will be applicable to anyone is going after a raise. Now, how does this look practically? What I would recommend is approaching your manager and saying, listen, I would like to be earning more money. Can we draft a plan on how I could be adding more value to this institution, and at the end of that process, get paid more? And I don't know what that will look like. That will differ for various vocations and lines of work. But to say, okay, if I can bring in more income or do more work or add more value, what can I do, and what will that look like in terms of translating to extra 5, 10, 15, maybe even 20%? Now, I've done this myself. I must be honest, there's no free lunch, so it's going to take some holy sweat, and you're going to work hard, and you're going to need to focus and be diligent, but it is possible. And point being, I want to encourage you to do that, to go down that route, get the plan, get working, and increase your income. Because if you can increase your income, keep your expenses the same, there will be more margin at the end of the day. Something else you could do is start a side hustle. Maybe you've got that business idea you've always wanted to try out. Maybe you can freelance if you have some skills or a skill set that you can sell online, something you can do remote that people will be willing to pay you for, that you can turn off, turn on, work for 1 week extra or 2 weeks or whatever, and manage that workload as would be healthy for you. And then you could, coming back to the word, be more radical. Cut someone's grass. Point I'm making is you might need to humble yourself, roll up your sleeves, look at what's the easy wins. Can I wash the cars in my neighborhood? Can I cut some grass? Can I clean some pools? And essentially do anything you can to get your hands on that excess cash so that you can build that resilience, get out of debt, and move yourself forward. So that's obviously very important. And then the second way we can create margin, again, as per our equation we laid out, is to then decrease expenses. Expenses is a very, very important part of the equation, because as we mentioned earlier, again, driving home this point, if you increase your expenses when your income increases, you are not moving forward. You are merely creating this illusion of progressing financially, when in actual fact, all you're doing is just running on a bigger hamster wheel. So that being said, Martin, tell us about some ways that we can decrease our expenses.
Before we get into that, what about a way of looking at benchmarking? What if you know you're not earning what you should be earning compared to a similar job elsewhere?
100%. Lovely point. That's amazing. So something else we can look at is to see, for example, I'm a CA or I'm in whatever line of work it would be. I'm just using example because it will have to be like for like. And have conversations with people. Is your company underpaying you, especially if you're performing well, if you have leverage to go and say, well, company X is willing to give me 20% extra than what I'm earning, to then approach your employer and say, well, can you match this offer? So it might be worth your while as well to do some hunting, to send out some CVs, to see what's in the market, and if there's maybe an opportunity for you to increase your income substantially based on what the market is offering your skill set at this point in time.
Awesome. So to come back what Ruan said, how do we decrease our expenses? Now, I want to make something clear. We are not trying to cut the fun out of your life. We are trying to cut fruitless expenditure. Expenses that shouldn't be in your life at the moment, that you don't really have capacity for. And even though it might bring short term pleasure, in the long term, it might actually bring even more benefit to put that to a side, or maybe forego that, to defer that gratification for later. So we're not trying to cut the fun of your life, we're trying to cut fruitless expenditure. Like we've mentioned in previous episodes, this is about the vision that you have for your life. This is about doing an honest needs assessment to say, what do I need to live my life with my current context in mind? Yes, you want to be able to enjoy your money, but assessing your situation, if you're deep in debt and you're in trouble, need to get out, maybe we need to put aside some pleasures and focus on what are the priorities. So there are what we're going to speak about are some of the most commonly missed opportunities when it comes to decreasing our expenses. So Ruan, what are some of the things we can review, that some expenses already in our life that we can review on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis, where we will actually be able to try and where we can actually expect to find some savings?
So there exist like a lot of opportunities where we could essentially compare something you have to a different product or different product provider on a yearly basis. Where, for example, we get stuck into this financial rut of being told when we invest, wait for 7 or 10 years or whatever, which is sound advice, by the way. Or the house is not going to grow 20% in value overnight. And these things are all correct. But then we fail to look at the smaller things. For example, your car policy. In my life, it's standard practice to every January look at, okay, cool, where's my car insured? What is the options in the market? I did this recently and I saved 900 Rand a month on my car insurance, which is wild. So it's an extra 900 bucks that I now have extra margin, which I can divert whichever way I want to actually build wealth. And I'm paying for the same product. It's not like I lost anything or any value. I'm covered for the same amount, got the same vehicle, and that was just done by looking at different companies and saying, what are you willing to offer? Likewise, we can do the same with if you've got any other insurance policies, home content, life insurance, shop around. Worst case scenario, it's more expensive. You don't have to take it. And you just say, no, thank you. But if it's cheaper, then that's obviously going to lead you down a conversation, moving your products or chatting to your current provider saying they need to match that rate, which honestly, they're very willing to do. You just need to do the work, do the admin, and then present them with the fact that you actually got a cheaper rate. Over and above that, things like your cell phone provider, your internet package, the list is endless. Run through your budget and have a look at what expenses do I have and what expenses, for argument's sake, like a cell phone provider, do we have multiple companies doing the same thing? And then look up the competitors, phone them and say, this is what I have. Would you be willing to offer me a cheaper rate or monthly premium if I move to you? And then over and above that, you can maybe even look at your rent. I know it might be a bit of a schlep to move every 12 months. I moved every 12 months for about 3-4 years. And it sucked. I'm not gonna spin you a lie. But at the end of the day, if you can save 500, 1,000, 1,500 Rand on rent per month by moving, I mean, that's 12,000 Rand a year. Like, I mean, that's wild that you just have extra. And you didn't have to make that. You didn't have to create that. You were just prudent. You did a bit of admin, and then you were willing to make it happen. And that is things that I review on a yearly basis. So that's something that I would propose. But then also for those of you who feel like you're not flourishing financially and you need to become super, super radical, Martin, I believe you have some expertise for us on how we can make this happen.
Yes, these points are not going to sound sexy or desirable, but like Ruan said, if you really are in trouble, you really need this margin in your life, these are the places in which you can be radical. And remember, it might sound like small amounts at first when you cut 100 Rand here or cut a 300 Rand there, but cut a 200 Rand in 5 places and that's okay, saved every month, which you didn't have before. It's like giving yourself a raise and you didn't even increase your income. So, number one is cutting any and all subscriptions. cut your Netflix, cut your Amazon Prime, cut your stream subscription, put it aside. It's not worth it right now. Saving small differences on 5 to 10 line items can really make a considerable impact on chowing down that debt that you have, or building that emergency fund up to a place where you feel more secure with it, or be able to just create the breathing room to not be living month to month, especially if you have a wife or a kid, maybe even making these cuts, not necessarily taking away from your life, but just cutting away the things you don't need right now really can make an impact. Second one is entertainment. This is our biggest downfall. Most people that don't track their expenses, as soon as they start tracking it, they find that they are spending an inordinate amount of money on takeaways, on buying lunch, on I'm not keen to make dinner because I've had a hard day of work, so I'm gonna go get KFC, or I'm gonna go get a ready-made meal at Spa even. Or your boys invite you for a beer and a burger, or you want to go out to celebrate something on Friday, and now it's a meal that costs you about 200 Rand tip included. Like, these things are what causes us to often fall in a bit of a pit when it comes to our money, because we don't have the discipline to say no, or we don't know where the problem is with our money because we're not tracking it. But the point is, when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to restaurants, when it comes to drinks, when it comes to going out for activities, buying lunch at work, coffee. Oh my word, people can end up spending thousands of Rand on coffee every month. And these are places where you can really make big savings by exercising that discipline. And it might be difficult at the start, but over time, you're going to end up with quite a bit of saving and margin. And the third one is get off of Timu. Get off of One Day Only. Get off of Shein. I understand that we need clothes and I understand that we need certain things. But Timu, something like Timu or One Day Only or Shein has made it so easy to impulse buy that it's just not funny anymore. And it needs to be taken really seriously. It's so easy to just buy this thing for a few hundred Rand or 80 Rand or whatever and add on, add on, add on. And it ultimately gets to the point where it's a bit out of hand. You sit with things you don't really need or things that's broken down. And just because it's cheap, you've now bought it. Like Timu says, shop like a billionaire. And buying stuff makes us feel like that. But ultimately, we know stuff is not going to cause fulfillment in our lives. And less stuff now will cause margin, wealth building, freedom, choices later.
Thanks, Marty. Just one thing I was laughing about and chuckling while you were saying, if Timu sends you a message saying you get 50 Rand off and you then spend 500 minus your 50, you did not save 50 Rand. You spent 450 Rand. I think that's where we say, congrats, you played yourself. Spoken as someone who has done this. And I needed to get to the point saying, I'm being dumb. Because I can't walk into the mall and be like, oh, it was $1,000, it's 300 Rand off, it's $700, I saved 300. No, instead of spending 1,000, I spent 700. I did not save money. Did I spend less than I would have? Yes. But you need to have that money allocated and then spend it. You can't now go spending just because. Yeah, a bit of a pain point. But anyway, moving along swiftly. Another thing that's just a massive issue is, boys, karre, like vehicles are just so expensive. And again, to get back to it, maybe this is exactly the point that's going to catapult you to getting to financial freedom, and we need to be radical. Because if you're in debt, if you're drowning financially and your family has 2 cars, maybe sell the one. And now you go, oh, I can't do that because what if the wife goes to the salon and now I need to go watch ragas with the boys or whatever the dynamic may be. Yes, that's uncomfortable. But again, we're weighing up options. Do you want to feel like, okay, this is not like I need to delay whatever by 40 minutes because I'm waiting for the wife with the car? Or I can just drive wherever, don't really have the coin to fill the petrol tank, laying around at night going, how am I going to pay to replace the tires? Like, you're just picking what hard you want to have. And I would definitely rather just be waiting than stressing about payments. Second point on the vehicle conversation is like, Oaks, like some people have like a 1 million Rand car in the driveway. And if you buy it cash, awesome. I have no problem with a Ferrari. Like Martin on the other end loves cars. Like you guys have no idea how much he loves cars. But this man loves cars. But point being, if you're in debt, like the fact of the matter is the 200,000 rand car is going to get you the same place as the car that cost $1,000,000. And Saki, jy het nie die highlights nodig nie, my bra. Like, there's a lot of people that, and I often hear this is also fascinating. I don't know where my stress comes from. Where does my financial stress come? Look in their driveway. The mystery is solved. That is where the stress is coming from. It's parked in the driveway and it's taking all your money. And what do I mean by this? Practically, logically, why would I advocate for a smaller vehicle as someone that drives a smaller vehicle? It's for the following reasons. If that car's on finance, your payment will be much smaller. Gets us back to the theme of the video, meaning more margin. Because if you sell the car worth R1,000,000 and you buy one for 200, your income is not going to decrease. Your expenses will, which means more margin. If you have a smaller car, you're going to pay less on maintenance, you're going to pay less on fuel, you're going to pay less on insurance. So all these savings, R1,000 there, R700 there, before you know it, you can be sitting with a massive amount of extra margin on a monthly basis. To give you an example, I was chatting with a colleague of mine this week, and we were discussing what we would call the premium tire. Now, I'm not a tire fanatic, but when I'm getting sold on the tire, because that's normally what happens, I need a tire and then now I'm getting sold. The premium tire gets explained as the tire that is fuel efficient and will keep you the longest. Obviously, it needs to be durable because I don't want to replace it ever so often. For my car, a single tire costs 2,000 rand. For my colleague and his bucky, he's looking at about 5,500 rand. So for a single tire, it's almost 3 times as expensive. So you can do the math, who's got more margin, me or him. Obviously, there's different factors, but you get the point I'm trying to make. These are the conversations and these are the things that are going to create you margin at the end of the day. And after the car issue, the biggest cause of financial stress is most likely the house you bought or the house you're renting, for which we've also got some easy fixes. So Martin, tell us a bit more about how we can tackle that one.
Yeah, I would say it's simple rather than easy. But when it comes to your house or where you stay, these are some of this is probably the biggest ticket item on your bank statement, on your budget on a monthly basis. So we need to consider, are we living above our means in this? Are we stretching? Are we over capacity? Are we living in a place that we actually don't really need? Perhaps we need to consider downsizing, or rather call it right sizing, because there's a certain level of capacity for rent or mortgage or just housing costs in general that you have. And many people, just for the sake of a nicer place, maybe it's a safer area or a more sought after area, decide to go for the stretch, get a nicer house, take out the full 33% bond payment every month, not considering insurance and everything else added onto it, to live in this nicer place. But then the rest of their life is squeezed out because there's no breathing room. And that creates a lot of stress usually. So when it comes to renting, I'll tell you, in my case, when I was still in my article years and I really didn't earn a lot, I had to go to my landlords where I wanted to rent. Well, firstly, I rented with people. If you are single, not staying with anyone, you need to be staying with people. You do not have to be staying on your own if you're in a stressful financial situation. If you have margin, great. But if you don't, you need to consider moving in with people, perhaps moving in with a family. Friends of mine have done this. This is often the cheapest way, where a family rents out a room and you're able to stay there in the house. Yes, you're in their house with them. But again, if you want to create that margin, often it means being radical for a short period of time so that later on there is that freedom. So consider moving in with people, consider moving in with a family. Consider moving to a cheaper place. That's just often the easiest win. Yes, it takes a bit of effort to move, but a cheaper place. If I own a house, do you really need that size of house? Do you need it in that area? Things you need to consider. Yes, I understand if you have a family, there's more things to consider. But do you want to be able to pay school fees, or rather stay in a super nice house that doesn't allow you to do that? These are the options you need to weigh up. In a smaller place, if you own the place in a smaller a house, there's less mortgage, there's less rates and taxes, less levies, there's less electricity and water. Everything, as the growth decreases, becomes simpler, and the cost around it becomes cheaper as well. So you need to decide, what am I willing to give up for a bit more space elsewhere? And then vacations, lastly. Are you constantly going out with your friends to a camp trip this weekend, or to stay here in this house? Or are you stretching for the overseas holiday when you really know you actually can't afford, but you're putting it on the credit card anyway? These decisions you really need to weigh up. If you're deeply in trouble, vacations need to be put aside. Rather, take into account, what creative ways are there for me to get out, to rest, to relax, because it doesn't have to be with a fancy vacation.
Amazing. That's great, Marty. Yeah, so I think in conclusion, I just want to bring it back to the point that Martin made, is not to take the fun out of everything. We're telling you not to go eat out because you're spending money that needs to be spent on something else. But the overarching goal is for you to have a foundation which brings stability, which can create wealth, to get you to a point where you can eat out every night and it doesn't ruin you financially. Obviously, I don't know, for some people that might be attractive, for me not so much. But point being, there's certain things one does when your finances are more sustainable. And we are not now in the place to do such things. We are in the place to build, to restrain ourselves, to put money away. So it is more essentially less fun now equals multiplied fun later, which I think should be something that you just think about and could get you very excited about this journey and what it could mean for you and your finances. But with saying that, now that we've discussed some tools on creating margin, please stay tuned for the next week's episode on what we're going to do with that margin, as we walk you through obviously having the budget, less expenses, more excess at the end of the month. What do we actually do with that to create wealth, to create stability, to create peace of mind, and ultimately financial freedom? Bye for now.